Hey everyone, welcome back to Integrative Psychonautics. In today's video, I thought we would do something a little bit different and kind of take a little bit of a break from the typical content I do, which is maybe a little more educational or more about psychedelic therapy or coaching ideas, philosophy of psychedelics, this kind of stuff. And kind of get into the political side of it, the legal side of it a little bit, because I saw an article about a bill being pushed through in California, and I had a few thoughts about it, and I thought it would be interesting to share with you guys and just kind of offer it up as a personal take in this space. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and talk about it. And super briefly, for anyone who may be new and this is your first time seeing me, seeing this channel, seeing any of my content, my name is Dave. I'm a coach. I'm a hypnotherapist. I work in the psychedelic space. I help people with preparation and integration work. I do coaching support around sessions for people to really help people kind of optimize and get the transformation that they're actually after with psychedelics, because psychedelics by themselves don't necessarily guarantee transformation. They definitely can bring insight, but if you're just using psychedelics and you're not applying any sort of support or transformational process around that, there's a good chance that you won't actually get a lasting transformation. So that's what I do. And on this channel, we talk about that kind of content, personal development content, stuff related to psychedelics and personal transformation. So if you like that kind of stuff, welcome. So happy to have you aboard. You're in the right place. Okay, spiel done. Let's go ahead and talk about this bill and kind of my take on it. So there was a recent article that I saw in the LA Times that kind of popped up in my feed about a bill being pushed through in California to legislate and decriminalize and effectively kind of make quasi-legal certain plant-based psychedelics. And I had some thoughts about this, and what was glaringly obvious to me and interesting is not what's on the bill and what they're trying to legalize. I think that's generally probably positive, probably a good thing, a step in the right direction to decriminalize these substances, because in general, I think the net positive is bigger than the negative. So I don't have issue with legalization or with any kind of movement or overture towards that, particularly in California, where there's a longstanding culture of people using psychedelics, and it's a big part of certain segments of the population there. Let's be honest about that. What to me is so interesting and glaringly obvious, and I think a little insane, a little weird, a little strange, is the glaring omission of one of the major psychedelics, LSD. So I wanted to kind of share with you why I think this is bizarre. So just for context here, what they are legalizing, I'm reading the article here, what they are legalizing, they're looking at psilocybin, they're looking at DMT, they're looking at ayahuasca, they're looking at ibogaine, and they're looking at peyote as all being legal. Now, that's all really beautiful, and like I just said, but here's what's so insane to me. LSD, debatably deserves to be on that list because its safety profile is right there alongside with psilocybin. Essentially, if you compare LSD and psilocybin in terms of addictiveness or tendency towards being abused, or in terms of safety, physical harm, how likely is it to injure your body if you take it, or if you look at it in terms of therapeutic outcomes, they're very, very close. They are so similar in terms of effect that there's really no reason to not include LSD in this, right? What's so interesting to me is LSD is actually easier on the body for most people. It's more well tolerated. It's often less emotionally disturbing. It's a little easier to deal with and navigate and control the experience a little more. It's obviously very potent. It's a very intense psychedelic, let's be honest, but so is DMT, which is on the list. So is ayahuasca when properly dosed, which is also on the list. And so I think it's kind of bizarre how we've gone from these kind of early studies where they chose psilocybin partially because there's less cultural baggage there, partially because the duration is shorter. So if they're doing sessions where they're trip sitting people and they're giving someone high dose psilocybin, it's 6 hours instead of 8 or 10 or longer. And just in general, there's kind of, I get it, less stigma around plant medicines, but these plant medicines are incredibly strong. And if DMT is legal, and people are vaping DMT or doing synthesized DMT. That's not really all that different from taking like a LSD. It's a chemical compound. And the benefits of LSD, I think, far outweigh the risks in general, in the same sort of thing, in a controlled setting, for personal use, when you're talking about, responsible use, when you're talking about responsible dosages, for example. LSD is incredibly safe and easier to navigate, and it's really bizarre. I just think it's insane to say, well, this set of substances is fine and okay and acceptable and safe and good because they're plant-based, but this same substance that's arguably has the same effect and the same safety profile, and debatably also is plant-based if you're looking at ergot and lysergamides in nature, Hawaiian wood rose, these kinds of things, also plant-based, easier to tolerate on the digestion, generally speaking, less emotionally disturbing, and yet for some reason people who carry LSD will still be, at the full weight of the law. If this bill gets passed, they will not be protected. They will still be at risk for, being arrested if they have, 5 tabs of LSD in their pocket and they get searched or something like that. I just think it's absolutely bizarre. Ibogaine lasts for 3 days, 2 days, 3 days, and it's incredibly powerful. And yes, highly important because it deals with addiction. It addresses, real problems that we have in our society, particularly in California. There are a lot of addicts there, right? Ibogaine has a purpose and it's super valuable. Ayahuasca, again, super beautiful, super valuable, super healing, debatable. Some would say more healing than LSD, but I would say that's debatable in the context of psychedelic therapy. But very hard on the body, really challenging, often very emotionally disturbing. It doesn't make sense to me how these incredibly potent substances are all, on the bill, but LSD, which is generally one of the cleaner, safer, easier to navigate psychedelics, is not included simply because of some weird cultural baggage from 60 years ago. It's absurd. And just because the science is leading a particular direction, they've chosen a particular material because it's perhaps easier to work with in a study setting, doesn't mean that our society has to follow that track and do that exact same thing. And, mushrooms are great. Don't get me wrong. I love psilocybin. I think it's beautiful. I think it's valuable. It's helped a lot of people. But I also see a lot of people who struggle with trying to use them for healing because they can be so uncomfortable in the body, and they can be so nauseating, and they can be like really emotionally stir you up in a way that may not be optimal if kind of what we're aiming towards is decriminalizing and supporting people to use these substances for well-being and mental health purposes and that kind of a thing. So I just want to kind of speak up and say that I think it's incredibly bizarre not to include LSD in this list. I can understand maybe some of the more exotic research chemicals, not being okay, et cetera, et cetera. But to not include LSD when it's one of the classic psychedelics just seems a little absurd. Okay, off my soapbox. That's my opinion. Let me know what you think. I would be curious to know your opinion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think LSD represents more danger or more risk? Do you think this law is unlikely to go through? Do you think I'm being hyperbolic here? I would love your point of view on this, but I just thought I'd share because I saw this. I'm like, why are we excluding the obvious here? So anyways, with that being said, thanks for watching. Much love to you all, and I'll have a new video for you sometime in the very near future. All right, take care.